also these other great Art Attack videos to collect. Art Attack Most Wanted has lots of your most requested favourites. All the great art attacks you need for drawing and making your own comic strips are in crazy cartoons and dazzling drawings. Art Attack Let's Party is full of great stuff for party time. And the top 20 is exactly that. Now sit back and enjoy my video scrapbook. This is in my scrapbook. This is in my scrapbook. This is my Art Attack scrapbook. Good to see you again, and welcome once again to my Art Attack scrapbook. Hey, do you have a scrapbook of your own? Well, they're absolutely perfect, you know, for keeping your old artwork. And here's something else that's absolutely brilliant for storing your pictures, your messages, even your photographs. A big mouth notice board. Try this. Cut 2 big pieces of cardboard from the sides of a big cardboard box, and then draw a big mouth on one of the pieces. Now the mouth has to be open, and it has to have rather large, juicy lips. Something a bit like that. And then cut out the lips so that you have something that looks like that. Then place your lips down on the other piece and go around the outside of your lips. Again with a felt tip pen. Going all the way around. And then, when you've done that, cut that out, and you will have something that looks like that. And that is the backing card for your lips. And then just put the 2 pieces together like that, and draw the inside of the mouth. Now you've got that dangly bit down the back of your mouth. You've also got the tongue, like that. But whatever you do, don't draw the teeth. Then paint it in poster paint. Black for the inside of the mouth, pink for the tongue, and a nice bright cherry red for the lips. But before you paint the lips red, take some white poster paint and just paint 2 very rough white rectangles on the bottom lips. Again, just have to be neat. Something like that. And when you paint the red on the lips around those white bits, you get something that looks like that. And you've got those 2 sorts of shiny highlights on the lips that make them look nice and thick and juicy. And you can also paint in the cracks on the lips with a felt tip pen or darker paint. So when you've painted your mouth, just take some glue, any type of glue you like, but I'm going to use PVA school glue here, and just paint a strip around the edge of your backing board, all the way around the edge, but no wider than 2 centimetres. So it just needs to go on the edge, 2 centimetres wide. And I'm just going to do this strip here to show you that you do it all the way around your backing board. When you've gone all the way around, press your lips back into place. Press very firmly, again, all the way around. Glue the lips into place, plumping them down. Leave them to dry overnight. You might need to put some books on top of it to make it stick. And when it's dry, it would look something like that. And then it's just simply a case of slotting in your photographs and your letters under the lips and your notices. And there you have a big mouth notice board complete with paper teeth. And then hang it up in your bedroom or wherever you keep your notice board. And of course, there are different types of designs that you could try. What about the old hippopotamus, complete with rolled up paper teeth? Or even this, the shark attack notice board. And again, I've just took my photographs and my postcards and my little notelets in the mouth to create the shark's teeth. And the good thing about these notice boards, there's not a pin in sight. Try it yourself. A big mouth notice board. the pencil or not later on. This is just a guide to start with. There is, you've got like 4 circles at the corners of your way. Then take a 1p coin and draw smaller circles between those bigger circles. Again, he's doing it very rough here as a guide, and it's a good idea to leave a gap about at least 1 centimetre between each of your circles. You'll see why in a minute. And I often use pencil like this just to mark things in. So it's a good idea if you're doing pen drawing, you can rub the pencil out a little later on. This is a thing to start with. I'm doing 3 circles along the top between the corners, 4 circles up or down the side. And there it is again. It doesn't have to be accurate. You can see what's happening here. It's starting to build up a border. Then I take a green felt tip pen and just go around these 4 corner circles. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. You'll see why in a minute. And then watch this. If you start at the top of one of your corner circles and draw a line down to the bottom of the next circle and go around and then leave a gap. Very important that. I'll do that again. Top, bottom, gap. It's a sort of rhythm really. Top, bottom, gap, and then back to the corner. Now when you get to the corner, you turn it like that, inside, and go along one side. So you start at the top again, bottom, gap, keep going to the same rhythm, all the way around, again. So you reach the other corner, turn it upside down, and again, top, bottom, gap, all the way around. And then finally, when you get to the left side, it comes together. That's it. Top, bottom, gap, top, bottom, gap. And do the last one slowly to remind you. Top, line to the bottom, around you go, and leave a gap. And there it is. You've sort of created a fancy border around your way. Now you can stop there and rub the pencil out, or you can just add some dots either side of your lines like that. And you start to build up what looks like a vine leaf border. And you could even put in some coloured dots between your leaves, like that. And then, when you've finished it, it looks something like this. It's a sort of floral border. Yeah, and you can use those borders to jazz up your work, your drawings, and your writing, or just do it for fun. And you can even experiment with different size gaps between your circles. Look at that. And what about using lots of different colours? Go on, try it yourself. A fancy border. You know, I was looking through my scrapbook the other day and I noticed that some art attacks that we do are very neat and perfect and look brilliant, and yet other things that we make are very rough and scrappy, and yet they too create a great effect. There are also lots of art attacks in here that look very old, such as this one. Now you need to draw a fish onto some cardboard and cut it out, so you've got a shape that looks something like that. Then cut the tail off, cut the head off, and you're left with the body. And the idea is to snip slots in the body all the way along, just going 3/4 of the way up. Now, quick tip, if you have trouble cutting cardboard, soak it in water first. So just being careful with my fingers there, and creating a sort of cone effect. Now when you've done that, just turn it round and bend these prongs first one way, then the other. One way, the other, alternating them all the way along. Slowly but surely, we create a fish skeleton. Then take the head, bend that as well, that, the front, and then the tail, bend that over, and put that at the back. Doesn't matter if you rip it. Now you know what happens to bones throughout the years? Well, they crumble, so I'm just going to crunch them up a little bit. Again, it doesn't matter if it tears, just crunch scratch it up, or what adds to the effect. Now, you know the way fossils are made? Layer upon layer of sand, soil and rubble build up on top of a skeleton. Well, this fossil is made with layer upon layer of toilet paper. Now, I've got some PVA glue here. I've mixed it half and half with water. It's just a squidgy block of glue. Actually, school glue. I'm just going to slop it on there. Slop it all over the skeleton. Now, you don't need to stick the skeleton down to the board, because what happens is the toilet paper soaks in the glue, it sticks the whole lot down, and you just paint the glue right across the top. You don't have to be neat. Now, the idea is to completely cover it with 3 or 4 layers of toilet paper, and when you've done that, it will look something like this. There it is. And while it's still wet, you don't wait for it to dry. You take some sand, and you literally sprinkle the sand all over your skeleton. So just cover the whole lot. If you haven't got any sand, you could of course use some yellow powder paint. If you haven't got any yellow powder paint, you can borrow some flour from the kitchen and paint it yellow afterwards. There it is. Completely covered. Then let that set for about 2 minutes, but no longer than that. Otherwise, all the sand soaks the glue up and it all falls apart. So after about 2 minutes, you're left with something that looks like that. And it's just a case of shaking off all the excess sand, and there you have fossilized fish. Now, of course, you don't have to do a fish. You can always leave the tail off, make the body a bit longer, and do a fossilized snake. What about this? Make the head a bit bigger, with a bit more detail, and do a fossilized dinosaur. Or even this. Draw around your hand onto some card, bend it a bit, and do a fossilized human hand. Try it yourself and make some ancient fossils. And just before I put my sand away, there's another way you can use it to make an art attack. You could draw or write something first in glue. Now, I'm just using PVA glue here, you know. When you school glue, you get the white squidgy bottles. And when you've done your picture or your writing, just simply sprinkle your sand all over the glue picture. Just cover the whole thing like that, and then just pause a moment for it to sink in, and then simply shake it off like that. And there is your picture. In fact, there's lots of powdery stuff like sand you can make pictures with. Try glitter, or even flour. Or what about this? Sawdust. Do you know what? Some of the most effective pictures or cartoons are very simple line drawings. Just watch this. A couple of lines like this. And very simple. And this is something that I had to bear in mind before my biggest ever art attack, because I was using an art material that I'd never actually used before. See what I mean? It's just a simple line making a simple cartoon picture. Any idea what it is yet? It may be a simple line drawing, but it wasn't that easy on the tractor. So I decided decided to have a go with something else. Do you know what one of my favourite art materials is? A rubbishy old cardboard box. Yeah, they're so versatile, you know. You can use the corners, you can use the flaps, you can tear off bits of the side. And where do I keep all my old art materials? In my rubbish cupboard, of course. Take a cardboard box as big as you can find and pull the top flap up on one side like that and the bottom flap out like that. Cut the whole of this side out and you'll have something that looks like that. Now you could use that to make a little cupboard, but let's not mess around here. Let's go for the big one. Take the rest of the cardboard box and open it out flat like this. Now this part will be the cupboard and these two flaps will be your cupboard doors. Now to fill the cupboard, just take some assorted boxes and cartons that you're going to throw out in the rubbish and just lay them into position on your cupboard. First of all onto what will be the bottom shelf, like that. And it's a good idea to use different types of cartons and boxes, different sizes, because you're going to be putting different things into your rubbish cupboard. And then do the top shelf, just putting them into position where you think the top shelf is going to be. And you notice here, I've just neatly trimmed the edges of the boxes, like that, so I can get things into them without hurting my fingers. And don't forget, if you're going to use plastic bottles, wash them out, otherwise they really pong. Now when you've got your top shelf into position and you're happy with it, just draw a line underneath the boxes, like that, just to show you the position of your top shelf, and then move your boxes off your cupboard, top and bottom, and then put the rest of the detail of your cupboard in. So okay, I'll complete that shelf, that's the top shelf. Now the bottom shelf will be down here, and at this stage you don't have to be neat at all, because we're going to be painting it in a minute. This is just a rough guide for you. I'm going to do the whole frame of the cupboard in like that, and then I'm going to do the frame of the two doors in. Don't forget, this is the inside of the door, so you would see the frame like this. There, like that, and one on the other side. And you can put in other little bits of detail later on, like hinges and the locks. And it's just a rough guide. Now listen, this is very important. This area here and this area needs to be painted black or a very dark colour, because this is the back of the cupboard, and you want to make it look as if your cupboard has got depth. Now to paint your cupboard using poster paint or acrylic paint, I've got some acrylic paint here. You can paint your cupboard any colour you like. I'm going to paint it brown, because after all, it is a cupboard. I'm going to give it a wood finish, or a wood colour, or should I say antique pine finish, as they say in the shops. There it is, just slushing it on. You can do it a little bit more neatly than I am. And when you've done the frame, go over the whole of your cupboard. Do your doors as well. Don't forget to paint the whole of your doors in whatever colour you're using, and don't forget to do these bits in a dark colour. When you've painted that, and it's all dry, and you've put in your detail, you'll have something that looks like this. Wait for it. Ta-da! Look at that. And you can see what I've done here. I've used different colour brown just to give it a nice wood effect, and I've painted these two areas black, and you see how it makes it look as if the cupboard has got a lot of depth in it, and you can see right into the cupboard. And look at the detail I've put in here. This is just ordinary silver pen for the hinges and latches, and I've even gone around all the detail with black permanent marker. And this is a good effect. You've seen me do this many times before. Watch this. Just some wispy lines in the brown paint, permanent marker, wispy lines and curls, and you get this sort of great wood grain effect like that. And then just pop your boxes back into position. There, and that one there, I think. And again, you can just organise these as you go and get them into the position that you want them in. And you put your bottle up there, just about fit into my cupboard. Look at that. Put that there like that, and that on there. And then you can, if you want, put some more boxes on top of these boxes. If I pop that one onto there, like that, and then I just cut some boxes, the flat fronts of the boxes, and just stick them in the back, and it makes it look as if your shelves are really full and your cupboard is bursting with goodies. Again, putting a little box on top like that. When you're happy with the position of your boxes and cartons, just take a very strong glue, PVA glue or an all-purpose glue, and glue them into position. And here it is, my rubbish cupboard. And do you know what? It's been in the Art Attack office for over 2 years. And the secret to it lasted so long? This stuff, PVA glue. Now once you've stuck all your boxes into position, you can, if you want to, cover the whole lot in a layer of PVA glue. Now it'll look terrible when you've first done it, but then it'll dry see-through and it'll make all your boxes nice and strong. And what do I keep in my rubbish cupboard? Well, I've got my pens and my pencils and paintbrushes and CDs and even letters and notes, lots of bits and pieces in there. Find yourself a rubbish cupboard. Do you know what? I was looking through my scrapbook the other day, and do you know what I found? A photograph of a special guest star. Now, it's not often I have someone here with me, is it? And you'll never guess who it was. It was me mummy. Honestly, take a look at this. There she is. Me mummy. Told you.
For thousands of years, explorers have risked the curse of a mummy's tomb to reveal the secret of ancient Egyptian art. It can now be revealed.
Instant coffee, actually. Come and have a look at this. Mix 1 teaspoon of instant coffee with about half a pint of water and PVA glue. Now, PVA glue is that white school glue that you get in the squidgy bottles. And your mixture needs to be about 2 parts water to 1 part glue. Now, hold on. What's this got to do with Egyptian art, I hear you asking? Well, take a piece of white paper, any size, and just lay strips of gauze bandage that you've cut to lengths slightly longer than your paper. And just lay them side by side next to each other on the paper. Excuse me. And the idea is to just cover your paper completely in raggedy bandage. And again, it doesn't matter if they hang over the edge, because it's all part of the effect. When you've covered your paper, just take a brush and start to literally slop on your mixture of coffee and PVA glue. Again, you don't have to be neat. We never are on Art Attack. Don't put too much on there, because the idea is that you're trying to get the bandage to soak in the PVA glue mixture and glue itself to the paper. Now, I'm not going to do the whole lot here, but when you've done it, when you've covered all the bandage, just put it to one side to dry, leave it overnight, and when it's dry, it will look something like that. And the coffee has actually stained the bandage so it looks old and mummified, and in fact the whole paper has stiffened like some ancient Egyptian papyrus paper. Brilliant effect. Now to decorate it. Well, the Egyptians themselves, they would have made some dyes with which to paint, but I find you can get a great effect if you use wax crayon or chalk. Now, the ancient Egyptian art was quite primitive, so you don't have to do a brilliant drawing on this. It's just an effect that you're looking for. You don't even have to draw anything that's Egyptian. You can make something up yourself, but I like these Egyptian symbols. Now the faces, they weren't brilliant, and they always seemed to have these square haircuts. And they had an awful lot of eye makeup. And the colours that they used a lot of blues. Oh, snapping the crayon there. They used a lot of blues and a lot of golds. You've probably seen that in those pictures of the Tutankhamun exhibition. I'll just put those colours on. And try to keep your crayon nice and sharp if you can, because it makes a good thin line there. I'm just going to draw very thin arms, because they always seem to draw thin arms. Again, slapping the crayon there. Must be the case of the mummy. They always had thin arms, and for some reason they had the bodies facing to the front, like that, and the arms and the feet facing to the side. Maybe they were a different shape to us, I don't know. There it is. When you've finished it, colour it in completely, and it will look something like that. And as you can see, I've decorated it here with some ancient Egyptian symbols. Well, actually, only one of them is Egyptian. That one. I'm not too sure what it means, but they used to write about their lives and their families and friends and even their hobbies. So what I've done is I've put in a paintbrush and scissors for my hobby. And another good idea is to put in your initials back to front and then some more symbols. And there it is. Some mummified Egyptian art. Try it yourself. And when you've finished it, show it to your mummy. What do you think? That's nice. Looking through my scrapbook, it's amazing how many times I've cheated. Take trees, for example. Now, loads of people think they're hard and fiddly to draw. I just cheat. I let the pen do all the work for me. Take a brown pen and hold it at the end like that. And then don't draw a tree at all. Just draw a Y shape and let the pen do all the work. Now, you notice that my hand's shaking, the pen's going all over the place. That's because I'm holding it right at the edge there. It doesn't matter because it actually helps with the effect of the tray. Draw a Y shape, like that. And then on this arm of the Y, draw two branches, still holding the pen at the top. And then on those two branches, draw another two branches. And then on those branches, draw another two branches. So on, and just keep drawing two branches on the two branches that you've just drawn. And when you've finished, it will look like this. Okay, so that's how you get a tree with branches on. But what about the bark? We'll cheat with that as well. Now, to create a good wood effect, just draw a couple of sixes on the trunk like that, and then just some wispy lines going around those sixes, just to create a really streaky wood effect. Like that. Look at that. And when it comes to doing leaves on your picture, just draw dots in green, like that. And you know, if this gets a bit boring, then just take a handful of green pens or pencils and do loads of dots. That's a lot quicker. But what about this? You could always use an old stiff brush with some paint on it. And it's just a case of dipping it into some green poster paint, like that. And then just wiping off most of the paint, and the idea is to get your brush as dry as possible, so don't put any water on it, and then just hold it vertically above your picture and stab it down onto the paper, and look what happens. Look at that, hundreds of leaves start to appear. It's a really good cheat, isn't it? It saves you drawing each leaf individually, and the more paint you put on and the more leaves you stab onto your picture, the thicker they get. Look at that. And there it is. Not bad for a cheat, eh? You know, I really like using things in the wrong way. This stuff, sticky back plastic. Now, you normally use it to back things. I use it to make pictures. Have a look at this. Take a piece of paper, any size you like, and cut a piece of sticky back plastic, still with the backing on, so that it's roughly 1 centimetre wider than your paper on all edges. Then remove your paper, turn your sticky back plastic shiny side up, and I've discovered you can draw on it using a permanent marker. Now, it has to be a permanent marker, otherwise it will just rub off. And just draw a rough picture, anything you like. I'm just going to draw a very rough picture here. Of some fruit. Oranges there. Lemon in this corner. Now again, it's not perfection we're looking for here. like to style, so I'm going to do some stylized bananas. And maybe one coming around here. And maybe in this corner, some grapes. Just a very small bush of grapes there. And dominating right in the middle here, with some knobbly flesh, a pineapple. I'll just draw those marks on this. It's a flesh there, it's like a pattern as well. Again, doing a very rough picture. I think just to balance the picture up, I'll put 2 cherries. When you've done your picture, just peel back one of the corners here, and this is where we get our own back on sticky back plastic. Turn it over, now shiny side down, hold it onto a flat surface, and then slowly peel back the backing. With a bit of luck, yeah, sticky back plastic sucks itself to the flat surface, and there it is. Now look, don't let the sticky back plastic get you at this stage, because it's sticky side up now. I'm going to colour it in using scrap paper, coloured newspaper or magazines, even tissue paper. Yeah, that's it. Some green there for the apple. And again, you don't have to colour it in perfectly. I'm just going to do that colour in there, because it's a style I'm looking for. I'll put the orange in there, I think, for the orange. And then that for the lemon. Let's see, a nice bendy bit for the banana, maybe right up there, that's probably best for that. And you've got a little gap down there, so just cover all the gaps with coloured paper. Bit in the back there. The pineapple stalk there, and this fabulous sort of purple colour for the grapes. And 2 little bits of red for the cherries. Just being careful all the time not to pick up sticky back plastic. Then put your original piece of paper back in place very carefully. It could still go dreadfully wrong at this stage. And then just carefully fold up any excess sticky back plastic onto the backing. Now one edge. The other edge, all the way around. I think we've cracked it. There it is, a sticky back plastic picture. I've got one for you. What does a pencil case look like? Like this? Maybe even like this? Well, in my Attack Scrapbook, I've got a pencil case that looks like this. Yep, it really is a pencil case. Try this. Take an empty shoebox, any size you like, take the lid off and lay it down on its side onto a piece of paper, and just draw around that long edge like that, all the way around, so that you have a strip, and then cut out the strip, and you have something that looks like this. And believe it or not, this strip is going to be the handle on your suitcase. Now just take your box and lay it on the side and run the strip so that it goes down the middle of the side of your box, and then just tape it into place at one end like that. Watch this little trick. Just push that end up in the middle so that you get the handle. And tape that into place, and obviously make sure the handle's big enough to get your hand in. And there it is, your handle. And now to strengthen that, just take some scrap paper, twist it into shape like that, and place it roughly into position. You don't have to be neat at this stage. And just tape it on to your handle. Again, do it at the other end, so that you have something that looks like that, and it will neaten itself up a little later on. And then mix some PVA glue with water, 2 parts glue, 1 part water, and paste on some strips of onto your box. Now, you can use tissue paper or loo roll, but the kitchen roll is stronger and it's better for the handle. So just paste onto your box, put your kitchen roll on, and paste onto the top of it. And then, I'll show you how to do it on the handle. Just paste onto the handle, and like that. Wrap your tissue paper or kitchen roll around, and put some more glue onto the top, and that will just fix it firmly into place and make the handle nice and strong. Go over the whole of your box, inside and out, and do the lid, and leave them to dry separately, of course. You don't stick them together. And when they're dry, you'll have something that looks like this. Look at that. And the kitchen roll and PVA glue have gone rock solid. You've got this sort of crinkly, it's almost a leather effect, isn't it? Now, to put some detail onto your shoebox, and you just draw the detail on using permanent marker, like that, around the edge. You've got these leather corners that some suitcases have. Of course, you've got the leather straps down there, and you can put your initial on. What about some travel stickers? Now, I'm not being very neat here, but it doesn't matter at this stage because you're going to go over it in a minute. And don't forget your metal catches down the side there. And you see what's happened here? With this kitchen roll, you've got a nice strong handle as well. There it is. Now, the idea is to build this detail up into a 3D relief. The best way of doing this is to get messy. Stick some kitchen roll into the glue mixture, and just splunge out all the excess glue like that. Really sloppy. And then just place it onto your suitcase into position. I'm just going to do one of these corners here. And you see what's happening is it's turning into a pulp. It's great for modelling with. I'll do one of those leather strips again. Just twist it into shape. Into the glue. There it is. And then onto your suitcase. And again, just modelling it into position. And do it with all your detail and build it up into a 3D relief. When you've done it, put it to one side. Leave it to dry. Dry your hands and your table, whatever you're working on. And when you're finished, you'll have something that looks like that. Look at that, brilliant, isn't it? See, all the detail has now come up into a 3D relief, and it's ready for painting. Poster paint or acrylic paint, any colour you like. I'm using brown here to give it a lovely leather finish. I'm using acrylic paint here, such that dries with a nice shiny finish, and just slop on your base coat, cover the whole suitcase inside and out, and then you can put your detail on a little later on. You can paint your detail on there. So when it's finished, you have something that looks like this. Look at that, a shoebox suitcase. And see what I've done? I've even painted on my travel stickers, and I've put in some detail here using black permanent marker. And look at this, gold pen, the good old gold pen there for the metal catches. And you know what? I've still got it, and I still use it. You can use it to keep your pencils in, your art materials in. In fact, you can use them to put anything in. And you can even do your own design. What about a multicoloured cassette case? Or even this, a mini jewellery case. And this was made out of a tiny shoebox. Try it yourself, a shoebox suitcase. That's a really good art attack, and I've got lots of really unusual ideas in my scrapbook which have come in from schools, and wax resist is one of them. Great fun, and you know, you can get lots of different effects with this technique. Try this. Make a very simple wax crayon picture, but make sure the paper is completely covered in wax right up to the edges, and then you're not going to believe what I'm going to do next. Tear your picture. And watch what happens when I tear a piece of paper that's been covered in wax crayon. Look at that. You get like that white border around the edge. And if you do that very slowly and carefully around your picture, you end up with a white rough-edged border all the way around. And that is good. In fact, it's so good, I'm going to crunch it up. Now don't worry, I haven't gone mad. It's all part of the effect I'm after. I'm trying to crack the wax on the paper. That should do it. Just smooth it out again. There it is. And then I'm going to take some blue ink. I'm just going to literally slop the ink onto the paper. Now you can do this with very watered down blue poster paint, but I find ink is best for this. Look at that, eh? The messier the better. I'm just going to brush it all over my picture. Make sure you cover the whole of the picture. And as you can see, a little bit messy, so probably better to put some newspaper down when you're doing this one. And then splashing everywhere. Look at that. Good fun. And then take some kitchen towel or a loo roll or even blotting paper and start to blot off the excess ink. That's great fun. Just get rid of that ink up top. And you'll notice that when all the excess ink is gone, there's just a little bit of ink that's settled here in the cracks, giving it a sort of shattered effect. And then to finish it off, you take some PVA glue, you know, the school glue in the white squidgy bottles. Oh, look at that. And just simply pour it all over your picture. And then slap it on with a brush, again, covering your picture. And at this point you might think, he's gone mad, it looks a mess. Well, you're right. No, I haven't gone mad, it does look a mess. But if you leave it to dry overnight, and you go back to it the next day, as long as you've covered it completely, it will look something like that. And the PVA glue has gone hard, shiny and see-through, giving it this fantastic sort of reflected light finish. Now, if you back it onto some white paper or card, you get a great batik effect picture. Yeah, great effect. Well, that's it for my Art Attack scrapbook. And do you know what? I've really enjoyed looking through it with you. So why don't you make one yourself and keep all your stuff in it? I'll tell you something, it's great to look back on and see some of the crazy ideas that you come up with. Here's some more of mine, and I'll see you next time. Ta-ra! You line up your shot, and splat attack! You can even try it with two colours. Splat attack! Splat attack!